We're on the show floor of the 2017 New York Auto Show, next on Talking Cars. Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Talking Cars with Consumer Reports. I'm Mike Monticello.
I'm Gabe Shenhar.
I'm Mike Quincy.
And as you can see behind us, we're shooting this podcast on the floor of the New York Auto Show. Now this is one of the most important auto shows of the year, and there's lots of exciting cars to see out there. So let's get right to it, guys. What did you see out there that you think really will resonate with new car buyers?
So, first of all, I mean, the mainstream cars are definitely the Subaru Crosstrek, which is pretty decent hit. I also like the Buick Regal, and but I think what's going to be in the headlines is that Toyota thing, which is
The FT4X.
Well, I'll never get these letters straight. I'm just going to
That's
call
what
it.
that's what I'm here for.
The Toyota thing.
Yeah, I mean,
I think you're thinking Volkswagen thing.
you know what? I'm just going to call it the Toyota Element. How about that?
Now, that's about the size of a Kia Soul. It's purely a concept, but
It's purely a
may be
concept,
something that's going to become production a few years down the road.
It's, I mean, they built it off the CHR, which is the new Toyota global architecture, and it's got some nice features to it. I mean, it has more of a kind of a rugged look as opposed to the urban look of the CHR. And I mean, they're saying off-roading and all kinds of things. It's not.
Well,
I
they're
mean,
saying
It certainly looks burly, or maybe more like the
Yeah.
Jeep Renegade.
They're saying
yeah,
it's
exactly. It's kind of like, it's meant to look like a you know an off-roader, you know, with an attitude of outdoors activity. But you know, it's basically an urban lifestyle kind of a vehicle. But I like some of the features on it, and I don't know if they're going to make it into production. But the dual action rear gate that can open, can lift up, or can do sideways like barn doors. That's kind of neat.
Yeah, and I kind of like the huge water bottles that are on the doors, because sometimes if you have an oversized water bottle, there's no place to put it in the car. This car has a slot for each of these gigantic water bottles that then you can take with you. But I don't understand. It's supposed to be like for casual adventurers. I don't even know what is that.
What I read is that Toyota is trying to get younger, go to the millennials. For example, I read that they're not going to be even offering a navigation system because they say, the millennials, they just use their phones, so they're not going to even bother with it. I mean, you have to give Toyota a little bit of credit for trying to go younger, because they're selling all these Camrys and all these Avalons, and they're losing a younger audience. So they're certainly going to give it a shot.
Right. Now, you mentioned the Subaru Crosstrek.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about that for a little bit? I mean, that's based on the new Impreza that we've already been testing and we've really been liking quite a bit.
Sure. So yeah, it's a whole new platform for Subaru. I mean, the early bird was the new Impreza that's based on it. The Crosstrek is basically an Impreza hatch with the raised ride height, and no surprise, I mean, they sell more of the Crosstrek than all of the Imprezas combined. It kind of competes with the sub-small SUV categories.
Right, like a Mazda CX-3,
exactly.
Honda HR-V.
In the low 20s, but it has become a really in kind of vehicle.
Sure.
And a favorite of a lot of people. So I expect it to be a pretty popular car among our readers.
Certainly the last model that we tested, a little bit noisy, a little bit rough riding. If we're basing anything on the coming up model based on the Impreza, this is probably going to be a lot more sophisticated, a lot easier to live with. And one of our criticisms of the last model was a smaller cargo hold. This one looks a lot bigger. And you got to understand. I mean, certainly everyone knows that all the manufacturers have to have SUVs at like every price level, every size, which is a nice way to transition to the Ascent.
Right. Well, so that's a concept, but it's about as close to a production vehicle maybe as a concept can get. It's clear that it's going to be a production 3-row. They need a 3-row SUV. What did you guys think about that so far? I mean, it looks pretty nice.
Yeah, of course, they already had a 3-row SUV with a Trifecta.
I don't think they want to talk about that.
Which nobody bought, and they themselves didn't even understand the car. But now I think this is like the second concept. They already showed a concept at the LA Auto Show. And but I think this looks like a real Subaru, and there's kind of like a family resemblance especially to the Forester. So it looks almost like a Grand Forester kind of thing, and if that might resonate more with more people and be a pretty viable competitor to a Highlander or a Pilot or Mazda CX-9.
Yeah, it's actually a little bit. The concept is a little bit bigger than those, just slightly bigger. But of course, who knows what the production one will really be?
And it has the look. It's almost a burly look for Subaru. And you think that the accountants in Subaru corporate were probably sweating bullets because they didn't have a big truck to sell, a big vehicle to sell.
When can we expect this? When do you think this is going to be on sale, Gabe?
It's about a year from now, so it'll be
early 2018.
well into 2018.
Right. And also another thing with this, it's got a new engine, a turbocharged 4-cylinder. That's a brand new engine for them.
Yeah, the Subaru officials said, we hardly ever build new engines, so this is a big deal.
Right.
Yeah, it's going to be a 2.4-liter turbocharged engine and linked to a CVT, continuously variable automatic, like the rest of the Subaru family. I'm a little sad that they're not going to have the 3.6-liter normally aspirated that they have in the Outback 3.6R.
They won't have that at all. Just be this Turbo 4.
Not at this point.
So.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, you also brought up the Buick Regal as one of the cars that you liked and you think is really going to be interesting to our readers and viewers. So they brought two. I mean, this is the new Regal, but it's a Sportback, which is really a 4-door hatchback, and the Tour X, which is sort of like a Subaru Outback competitor. It's an off-roady type wagon. There's no sedan. It's just this hatchback and a wagon. They look fantastic, especially the wagon. But what do you see here, Gabe? I mean, is that surprising to you that there's no sedan?
Yeah, a little bit. No sedan. But the liftback kind of looks like a sedan from the side profile. It has a silhouette of a sedan or one of those 4-door coupes. Kind of like in the mold of a Tesla Model S or an Audi A7. It looks very sleek, very stylish.
Very, very almost European.
Yeah.
The European.
Well, it actually is European because it's built by Opel.
Right.
And it's imported from Germany. So. But I think in terms of between the Tour X, which is the raised wagon, and the liftback, the Tour X is kind of interesting because it kind of splits the difference between an Audi A4 Allroad and a BMW 3 Series wagon and a Subaru Outback in terms of price positioning and everything. I mean, an Audi or a BMW, I mean, they're like teeny tiny inside, and they're you can't touch them for less than $50,000.
Right.
And the Outback, I mean, no one's going to take a lot of buyers from their beloved Outback, but there is a space there for this Tour X to kind of offer an alternative for someone who doesn't want an SUV and they have outdoors activities. I don't know, you put your kayak or your skis on the roof, you don't want to reach so high maybe. So who knows? And nowadays there's no more Passat wagon. I used to own one of those. There's no more Volvo V70 cross country.
But this is maybe the dilemma that Buick and General Motors maybe is thinking about. I mean, the Acura TSX wagon, which was elegant, wonderfully proportioned, drove nicely. They couldn't give them away. They couldn't sell them. It's like one of those cars that like enthusiasts love but nobody else bought. So I'm just wondering, are the people in Buick saying, okay, we got this idea, it's kind of a wagon, but in the marketing we probably can't call it a wagon because that's a dirty word, but there's not a lot of precedence in the last 10 years of kind of a regular looking wagon selling in any kind of numbers.
Well, that's why it'll be really interesting to see how both of them do, because look, hatchbacks don't sell great here either. Now, like you said, the Sportback doesn't really look like a hatchback, but still, it is a hatchback. They don't do well. Wagons don't do well in this country anymore. So it's kind of like, but you know what? They look great, especially the Tour X.
Yeah, I'm glad it's there. I think it's one of the most elegant designs that I saw during the show. I mean, it really looks beautiful. It looks big. I mean, we talk about comparing it to an Outback. It looks physically a lot bigger than an Outback, which might appeal to more mainstream American tastes.
Right. And well, you talked big. Maybe should we switch over to the Ford Expedition and the Lincoln Navigator? The Navigator, this was its show debut. The Expedition had come out at a previous show. These things needed a redesign. They were kind of getting beat up, in terms of how they rated versus the GM competitors.
Yeah.
They look all new. they really look considerably different than before, and the interiors are definitely, that's where they really needed a big redo, and they did that.
Yeah, so yeah, both the Expedition, like you said, and the Navigator were kind of like old in the tooth. I mean, of course, they're based on a previous generation Ford F-150, and then Ford kind of like extended the pickup truck into a closed SUV, not really understanding these are luxury vehicles. But now I think it's a whole new world. They're based on the current F-150, so aluminum body, which is lighter weight and all. It's very luxurious inside. I mean, to me, the whole thing looks so mammoth, so imposing.
Did you guys look at the interiors
yeah.
of the
Oh, yeah.
Navigator, especially the Navigator? And so they took
It's
about
nice.
200 pounds out of the body, because it's aluminum now. But they're not saying yet what it's weighing, because they basically admitted that they put a whole bunch of weight back in through all these tech
Right.
features and this beautiful interior. It does look fantastic, and the Navigator, it's got this black label edition, and then there's 3 different interiors. You can make it look like a yacht, or you can make it look like a ski chalet. They've got all these different things. They're really some neat stuff.
And you're definitely
me,
not slumming it when you look at the excursions. The Expedition.
You're going old school.
Yeah, that was really the big chunky thing before.
Yeah.
The Expedition's a platinum edition, which was on the show floor. Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Lots of room inside. I took the last version of Expedition that we tested on a long road trip, towing a 30-foot trailer. That is really where that vehicle was totally in its element. I mean, I understood our criticisms of the rough ride. The interior wasn't very nice. So I'm hoping
wind noise.
Yeah, wind noise. But I'm hoping that this model can tow as much as the last one. I imagine it will, because it was a really capable, totally enjoyable road trip vehicle.
And they're both 3.5 liter turbo V6s. The Navigator makes 450 horsepower, 500 pound-feet of torque. So I mean, it's got some sauce.
Yeah.
It's a lot of chops,
Will,
yeah.
will they see significant fuel economy improvements? The last Expedition we tested got about 14 miles per gallon overall, which is really pretty bad. So we're hoping, will this one, be able to kind of make the jump that Ford corporate's
Right.
always talking about when they're talking about, greater use of aluminum and lightweight components and blah blah blah. But so far in our testing, really hasn't impressed us that much.
Yeah, so don't hold your breath for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, another car that I really was interested to see was the Honda Civic Si. I've always loved the SIs. They have one here. It's a 1.5 liter turbo. It's basically based on the same turbo that's in the regular Civic, but this one has 205 horsepower. As with SIs in the past, it doesn't have a lot more power, but it's got a nicer interior, sportier suspension.
Only a manual.
Only a manual, nice seats.
That's gutsy.
That's totally gutsy. That's actually kind of shocking, but I'm glad.
is, yeah.
I thought it looked really nice.
My first new car was an '87 Civic Si. I loved that car. Certainly not as fast, not as sophisticated as today's model, but even like 8 to 10 years ago, Gabe, if you remember, that Si engine would just sing. It would rev like crazy. It would never feel strained. It was one of the best 4-cylinder engines in my experience ever.
And
Now
the
with-
shifter was delicious.
but now with the turbo 4 cylinders that we've tested in the current Civic, just not the same experience.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, we'll test our own. We'll buy one. We'll test it. It kind of competes with the Jetta GLI and the WRX in that compact sedan sporty car.
Right, now one of my favorite cars is the Civic Type R. And this is very radical that they're bringing a Civic Type R here. And now that has a 2-liter version of that turbo engine. Makes 306 horsepower. I sat in it. The shifter feels fantastic. It's got these crazy sports seats that are so hugely bolstered, yet, unlike some cars, you actually can sit all the way in and they're not, it feels super comfortable.
That's
but
pretty cool.
I just can't wait to drive this thing. To me, it's just great that Honda is willing to do this again. There was a time there it seemed they were kind of boring, but now it seems like they're getting their mojo back.
Yeah, Toyota gave up on the Celica. They gave up on the Supra. They gave up on the MR2. I agree. I'm kind of glad that Honda is sticking with the SI. I'm wondering, what is the suspension gonna feel like to live with it on a day-to-day basis? How noisy is it
It'll
gonna
break
be?
your teeth.
Something I'm thinking, man, if I was just out of college, I'd definitely be excited about it.
Yeah.
But I'm not so sure right now.
Right. Now, speaking of Honda, they had the Clarity here, 2 more versions. They had the fuel cell before, which is just, you can only lease that in California.
Right.
And now they brought the plug-in hybrid and a full electric. What's your impression of that so far, Gabe?
I mean, it's nice to have like a whole trio of alt-fuel vehicles. I mean, it's going to be very, very recognizable. So, you're, a progressive kind of person driving one of the alt-fuel vehicles. So the fuel cell is one version. Then there's the plug-in hybrid, which is going to be the main seller, the main version, and then an pure electric version with a range of 80 miles. I mean, I was a little disappointed with only a range of 80 miles these days. When range is going up to 200 miles and above. So.
And I think they're only selling that in 9 or 10 states, right?
Right.
And
California and Oregon at first, but the plug-in hybrid is kind of interesting because it's going to do 42 miles on EV alone, and then be on extended. So it might be a good alternative to a Volt, Chevy Volt, or a Toyota Prius Prime.
Yeah.
But Mike, you mentioned sales, and think about Honda's latest efforts for fuel economy type of cars, the Civic Hybrid, the Insight, the CR-Z, not gangbusters. Honda's had really a string of pretty bad luck when it comes to selling their fuel efficient models. Now, where the price of gas is right now, with people buying SUVs.
And with Honda's different hybrid system now, because those cars were based on a kind of like a half-baked, half-hearted kind of a hybrid system.
But they started the whole hybrid thing in 99 or 2000. They have plenty of time to refine it.
And Toyota completely overshadowed.
Yeah, but the point is that Honda's trying to sell fuel efficiency, and they're not succeeding.
Right. But they made it look more like this type of car, like a Prius, in terms of it's got some sort of goofy styling. It's got those.
Well, that was like the Insight.
Exactly.
The Insight was kind of goofy
not
style.
Quite, the rear wheels are partially
charitable.
covered. The rear wheels are partially covered up. When I first saw it, the way that the rear kind of like squats down, and then you've got those wheel covers, kind of reminded me more of a Citroen even than the first Insight.
Yeah.
Right. Or that kind of goofy Honda Accord wagon type
the Cross
vehicle,
Tour?
the Cross Tour,
Yeah.
which we couldn't see out. It had
Right.
terrible visibility. Yeah. I don't know.
The clarity.
I'm not so sold on the clarity.
No, I think it's ugly. I mean, the Toyota Mirai, that looks like a beauty queen compared to them.
Oh my gosh! Oh boy, that's
the clarity. Yeah.
Small praise. All right, so Mike, what really stood out for you? Like, what was your favorite car? What was your favorite car? Not so much necessarily a Consumer Reports car, or maybe it is, but what stood out for you?
The pickup truck area in the New York Auto Show is for some reason like in the basement. Like, oh, we can't have pickup trucks on the main floor. But so there's a great variety of pickup trucks down there that a lot of people maybe don't think about. I mean, I had to have like my annual Raptor sighting. Ram came out with this bright green 1500, which looks pretty awesome. So I always like cruising around the truck area. But I'm definitely with Gabe on the Regal Tour X wagon. I think it is gorgeous. I'm really hopeful that people kind of latch on to this idea. I'm also glad to see a lot of American muscle is very prominent here in the New York Auto Show.
Well, yeah, how about, the Jeep Grand Cherokee Trackhawk,
right,
with 707 horsepower, basically a Hellcat Grand Cherokee.
Nuts.
And then, even crazier, the Challenger Demon, which is basically a street-legal drag racing car, that with 91 octane, it's like 808 horsepower, 100 octane fuel, 840 horsepower. It's mind-blowing.
But it keeps amping up, because Challenger came out, loved the Challenger, the SRT, well, that's the one to have. And then there's the Hellcat. Oh, that's the one to have.
Well,
and now we've got the Demon.
The crazy thing is,
what's next?
It comes with just one seat, just a driver's seat. There's no passenger seat, there's no rear seat, but you can order them back for $1 for each seat, which is crazy.
I'll take a different take on these. I mean, Chrysler, to bring a bunch of journalists to the basement to show them the Hellcat Grand Cherokee, I mean, come on, that's just ridiculous. I mean, it just shows that this is all that Chrysler knows how to do. Like, here's an auto show, we have nothing in the pipeline.
Let's just add more power?
Let's just add more power to an existing, call it Hellcat, Trailhawk, whatever it is, SRT8,
right.
All of these things, and get everybody excited.
Yeah,
and,
I definitely hear what you're saying. Because what's next?
It's just covering up some serious deficiencies here.
I agree. You know, we were talking about this yesterday, actually, that if you went back to the mid 70s when muscle cars really started to die because they were getting choked with emissions and they were making like, you know, 190 horsepower, 180 horsepower, you could have never imagined if someone had told you that, you know, in 2017 you have an 840 horsepower street legal car, they would have said you're crazy. That could never happen. So it's, in a way, it's cool. It's happening, but it's maybe a little ridiculous that people can go out there with that much power on the street. And I totally understand where you're coming from, Gabe. They need to do something more than just add power to the cars.
Yeah, as much as I like the Challenger, that's just so over the top for me. I don't get it. I don't, you know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to do it from here in New York. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.